the biggest thing that's usually on my mind is how do I make this the best conversation for them, for myself, and for the audience, in that order. Those conversations that aren't deep, that aren't anything, it still allows you to get to know someone like really, really quickly. I feel like I know them. Well, conversations like this are important to be able to get people to express themselves, but like in a different way, in a way that they're not really able to be themselves.
Sending back to where they came from, cause it's your season. Even devils know we make a difference when we pray, You ain't gotta apologize to all these demons. Sending back to where they came from, cause it's your season. Even devils know we make a difference when we pray,
All right, so as you can see, we're in a completely different space today, a completely different setup, and I'm so excited for today's conversation. I've got someone who is an absolute star in the building. His journey has been really interesting, and it's actually interesting for me because I've wanted to, for whatever reason, I've really wanted to tell this story, and I was hoping that he would ask me to tell the story. So when I got a call or a message, did I message? I don't know. We'll find out who messaged who, but when I got told that I was going to do this conversation, I said, this is perfect, because watching his transformation online and kind of seeing everything that's been happening to him, that's been going on in his life over these last couple of years, these last 2 years, I want to say, I am so excited to introduce my guest today. Got Imran in the building. Round of applause, everybody in the building today. Okay. All right. So before we kind of get into anything, I like to play a little game just to kind of set the mood, set the vibe, and just get you comfortable. Because I know today's going to be quite a heavy conversation. There's like a lot to talk about. For those of you guys who don't know about his journey, we're going to break it down a lot more. But obviously, you were part of the Lotto Boyz, Lotto Ash.
Yeah.
Original name, the OG, and you guys have done a lot within the industry. I feel like you guys were one of the first, like when it comes to like, Afro-swing and that whole era of things. Would you say so?
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, so there's a lot, and now obviously you've kind of gone in a completely different direction. And I feel like all of us, or those of us on social media, we've kind of seen like the ups and downs and like some of the things that we've never really gotten like a full scope of the situation. So what I like to do is I like to play a little game of this or that, which is basically where I ask you this or that. Now, this we're gonna gear this to is like your old life.
Okay.
And then kind of also mesh it into a little bit of like your new life. So like I was saying before, you being part of Lotto Boyz, you guys were like at the forefront of Afro-swing at that time. So I wanted to kind of go through like some of the classics, the classic Afro-swing songs, and just kind of get your perspective, like, which ones are your favorite. Cool. So the first song, and I think my producer wants to maybe play the song for you to like hear in case you might have forgotten what it sounds like. Cool. So we got the first song, Bad Girl or Unfinished Business. Let's play the first song.
Hey, my dear, you done my baby girl, you're bad. I love you when you misbehave on me. Have you got a man? No. If you don't, you can play me. One time for them bad girl. Bumper go, bum, 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 bum. Wanna know why I'm praying so hard? I showed her the keys to my car.
Does it feel weird hearing this?
I wouldn't say that.
Yeah.
I think you just feel it's nostalgia in it.
Okay.
So I'm just like remembering like the time when I was like,
All right, next song is Unfinished Business.
Now they wanna sing my song. Take time on me, don't run away. Cause baby, we got unfinished business said. Don't see me one day. Cause I don't wanna waste no time telling me you don't love me.
This one.
Yeah, it has to be unfinished. Has to be.
All right, let's do it. Okay, so you're going for that one?
Definitely.
Why that one?
Well, I think with Unfinished Business, I think that's like, it has more of like a meaning behind it, rather than Bad Girl. Bad Girl was just me, flaunting. But Unfinished Business was like it was a real genuine conversation.
Yeah.
So yeah. Okay. Unfinished Business.
All right, so let's go into other Afro-swing songs that aren't yours. Who's taken it this time? Between Sona, Ginger, who was also like a massive part of the Afro-swing phase, or a new school kind of Afro-swing, Odile with Drain Me.
Oh, I'm gonna have to go with Odile,
Yeah?
Yeah.
Okay. Why?
I'm gonna go with Odile, mainly because obviously Maybe I'm being biased because Odell's my guy.
Oh, okay, cool. I hear you. Fair enough.
Well, I'm gonna go with Odell. I just think he's in terms of like how he puts stuff together. I've seen him in the studio process, and
he's amazing.
it's too intricate.
He's
yeah.
epic. All right, last one for you.
Great.
This one's quite hard. Can't lie.
Okay.
Young Bane, Rihanna, or One Asen featuring Western with Vice Versa. I know. I can even hear that one in my ear right now. Wow.
Oh,
Who we picking?
I'm gonna go for Rihanna only because
Go.
at the time when that song was going off, I
Yeah.
used to sing it to like girls, and that was my
So, as in, like, what?
as a joke.
Like,
As a joke, I would sing it as a joke, but I was telling her that she's bad like Rihanna through that song. You know what I mean? Nah, that song was awesome. Yeah.
what a time. What a time. Doesn't that just take you back to like when Afro-swing was just massive?
It was big. It was big.
What are your thoughts on the way Afro-swing is kind of transformed now? And like, I guess would you call it the new wave? I feel like it sounds completely different. I don't actually agree that this is like the new wave of Afro-swing. I feel like it feels like that was a different sound to what we're experiencing now.
Yeah, definitely. I think it's become more like, well, it's just different at the end of the day. I think back then it was like, you could hear like the real life scenarios in people's situations.
Yeah.
They weren't just singing for singing. I feel like there was more like in tune with what they was actually saying. I think now that, well, music altogether anyway, has kind of become more like what's popping. Let's talk about what's popping kind of thing.
Cool. I always want to go, I want to go to the origin story just of your story. I don't think it'll be right for us to go into this conversation without us talking about Lotto Boyz, us talking about how that even came to life and just what that era of your life was like for you. So let's start with let's give me just a brief intro into how you guys even came about.
Well, it all started at youth club, to be fair. I was going to a youth club that Luke was going to.
Yeah.
Lotto Lucas. And I always tell the story the same. He was like super popular, but I was just kind of coming in because I was dating a girl that used to go there, kind of thing, at that time.
Yeah.
So I was just coming because she was there, and then I got to know everyone. And then one day, Luke had a song, and everyone was like, "Oh, why don't you get in studio together?" But at this point, no one's heard me rapping it, and the youth director at the time, because it was a youth club, I rapped in front of him, and he was like, "Whoa, now you guys need to get in studio." And then from there, we had our first show at the age of like, how old was I? I think I was 14. What? No, I was 16 at the age of 14, 16. And then we sold that out because that was in O2 Academy, the 300 room. And yeah, ever since then, it was just smooth sailing. And then we met our manager afterwards, and that's when like Lotto Boyz got solidified. Because prior to that, it was just Ash and Lucas.
Just doing your thing.
Yeah.
Did you know at that time that you wanted to go into music? Was that like music always been the thing for you?
Yeah, I've always loved music. I've always I was that guy when football was footballing. I was in the studio. So yeah.
So you kind of just knew this was going to be the industry for me.
Yeah.
When I was like watching some of your videos, I've spent a lot of time like just really like taking you in like old things, newer things, just because I want to make sure this conversation is as full as it needs to be. I think there was like a point in your journey where you had said that you were kind of feeling out of place with music, or with I kind of wanted to understand, was it that you were falling out of place with like Lotto Boyz, or was it music, or was it with the music industry?
I think it was I think it was more the persona that I was becoming that I actually wasn't.
I'm not gonna lie.
Yeah.
Okay, so when we first met, so context, the first time meeting you was we met at a party.
Yeah.
And when you mentioned persona right now, earlier when I was in the room and I was talking to my team about and they asked me the question like, oh, how has it been? Something about the process. Like, do you know him? Like, do you guys know each other? Da, da. I was like, since we've been talking, like the phone calls that we've been having these last like 2 days, I feel like I've gotten to know you. Even though we haven't really spoken about anything other than like, oh yeah, does this make sense, timings, etc. I feel like I've really gotten to know you, and I feel like I've got quite a good understanding of like your personality and your character in comparison to like when I met you then. You saying a facade, or you saying like a what did you say just now? Just like A persona.
Yeah, persona.
A
Yeah,
persona. I definitely felt that persona when I first met you. Because I was
really.
not a fan. I did not like you.
Oh my.
It's like, well, I remember me and
Ah,
Fiona left that party, and I was like, who does he think he is? Like,
really?
yeah, I'm not gonna lie. Yes, that was exactly what I said.
Now I'm even trying to remember. I think I remember when I first met you,
Yeah, yeah,
definitely,
yeah,
but I
yeah.
wasn't sure if it was my party or if it was like
No, it
someone
wasn't
else.
your party. It
It
was someone
wasn't my
else.
party.
It was someone else's party, but you were there, and you were just sort of having a good time. But I wasn't. Yeah, I was like, it feel literally. It does feel like a whole different person.
No way.
Yeah. So what would you
That's
describe?
amazing.
How would you describe that? So like, what was that persona?
Well, in a nutshell, like that's Lotto Ash, really.
Mm,
I think that is Ash to a T. That is Ash, like not knowing who he is, not knowing who he's called to be,
mm,
like no purpose. Like I wasn't purpose driven. I was like emotionally driven,
mm,
which then obviously played a big part in like how I felt at the time. So that's why I always felt like I was out of place within myself. Because for example, if I ever did something and I knew it was always wrong, but I was like, I don't even want to do this. I'm just doing this to appease people, really,
mm.
and just I don't want to be like the what do you call it, party pooper.
Yeah.
'Cause I just don't want to be like a burden or any sort. But those things are things that I've grown up with.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Give me an example. You know that thing when you know that you're acting out of emotion and not necessarily like out of purpose, or acting out of like
Mm.
acting as someone who knows who they are. Was there a moment, was there like a situation where you're like, you know what, I'm not really being anybody other than like a character right now?
Yeah, I think it was like there was like back in like the Lotto Boys days where like girls will come back to like the hotel and stuff. There was one day when obviously a girl I had to appease
The people.
life,
Yeah.
and she was in my room and I said to her, "Hey," and I felt so bad because I was just like, you know, let me just be honest with you. I am not this person. So I'm not gonna do anything.
Mm.
I said I'm not even gonna touch you. I'm not drinking anything. I said I am so tired. I had a bad day. I said I am so tired.
Yeah.
And I was like, you can go and say whatever you want
Mm,
that happened, but like I'm like I don't want to do anything.
mm.
And she cried. She cried. She broke down because she was like, she's she didn't want to do anything either, but she thought that she would have to appease her friends. And
Wow.
I was like, you see this? I said, and this is why I just can't. I just can't. And I was just like, you know what, I'm just gonna take a backseat when it comes to this kind of stuff. And then from that day, I was just like, I'm never ever. I'll always let them know from the beginning. This is not what I'm on.
Was that one of the first, just to move things forward?
Mhm.
I'm thinking if this was one of the influences that led you to kind of making the decision that you didn't want to be a part of the Lotto Boys
To be
anymore.
honest, prior to this, I was in my room and it was like I was literally just thinking, and I thought I was talking to myself at the time,
Yeah.
but it's like I heard someone telling me to leave Lotto Boys. Now I didn't. All I asked in a like passing comment,
Yeah.
and I said, "Oh, guys, you know, what would happen if I ever leave Lotto Boys?" kind of thing.
To
And
your
then,
team.
yeah, they was just like, "Oh, you just leaving it?" Like, what do you mean? But obviously, they probably thought it was a joke or
Yeah.
whatever. And I was sitting there with it for time, and obviously, I didn't leave. Um, and it wasn't nothing to do with them. It wasn't nothing to do with Luke or Math, because like they're great people. Do you got what I mean? Like they're doing what at the time like they can do whatever they want
Mhm.
kind of thing. I think for me, because it was about me, I then thought this is it's getting like it kind of felt like I was fighting myself,
Mm,
and then I would have to act like this in front of them, not to appease them, to appease the thoughts that I'm thinking,
mm,
basically.
mm.
And then I will go back to my room and I'm like, oh,
Why did I do that?
yeah, I'm like, I don't want to do this no more.
Mm,
And it was nothing to do with music, because I love music, nothing to do with Luke or Math, because like I appreciate them. And it was just to do with me. There was that's what I'm saying. It was like something higher that was
mhm.
calling me up and calling me out. And I just felt like, nah, something is shifting me in that. And I can't necessarily hear the conversation,
Mm.
but I can discern what is actually going on. Yeah.
And at that time, I guess also you didn't really have much of a relationship with God then, in order for you to kind of identify it as like something.
No, well, I didn't even read my Bible like that. I knew some scriptures from
Yeah.
like Sunday school.
Yeah.
But I didn't touch my Bible. I didn't seek God in any way, shape, or form. I just prayed like how I knew, God, thank you for waking me up this morning.
Yeah.
Well, that's one thing I've always kept. That's gratitude.
I remember just online there was like a few conversations here and there, but nothing was really like fleshed out. But just like that was going on in Lucas's life, and there was I feel like there was loads of little like rumors, whether it was like you guys weren't getting along or there was just always something, right? And I wonder when was the point, when was the official point where you're like, you know what, I'm no longer doing this, and also if you want to clarify like whether there was actually like something like between.
Yeah. So what actually happened was, prior to the Lotto Boyz relationship breaking down, not the relationship with us as humans, just the relationship in music, within the business and stuff like that. I was in church, and I tell this story all the time. I went there to see what new girls were in the church, kind of thing, and I was just like, and even that alone, like I was already just like,
Wild,
what am I doing? But anyway, I'm already here now. I'm dripped head to toe in designer, and I've sat there, I've looked around, and it's just the people that I know, like my friends in it from back in the day. So I was like, ah. But I was there, and I felt like I was falling asleep at one point. So I sat up, and out of nowhere, I heard this loud voice that said to me, "Go home." It shook my whole being. I could swear the room froze for a second, and I'm like, I'm awake. I'm not stupid. Like, it's Sunday. I haven't done anything stupid. I haven't drank. It's not like anything's shifting me. And then I look up and think, oh, maybe the pastor's just preaching, and then maybe I just missed it. But when I looked up, it was a woman. It was a lady, and I was just like, whoa. So that means, so I was like, okay, so God spoke to me today. And that's the first time I've ever heard God audibly, ever. So then after that, they did altar call, and I went up to the front. The lady didn't even ask me anything. All she said was, "You've got a decision to make, but I know you're going to make the right decision." I said, you are right. I said, as soon as I leave here, because I was at the time I was staying with Luke and Math. I don't know what reason I had to go back home for, but I went back home anyway. And it was literally after that the business, everything started breaking down. And obviously, do I think it's God's purpose? Yeah. So I don't regret anything.
Yeah.
But yeah, at the time I was just like, wow, now look what's happening. There's so much happening. And I'm not really doing anything. So I'm like, this definitely has nothing to do with me and just God's plan at the end
You're
of
just
the
like
day.
moving in the direction that you need to move.
Yeah.
You, again, just from watching like some of the things that you've like posted out there was a story that you told, and I'm trying to create a timeline in my mind of what makes sense and how things happened. But you mentioned that there was like you went through like quite a dark period where you were suicidal, and I think there was a story that you told about you being by a bridge. And so I wanted to know, before we even get into that story, where does that story fit into the timeline of you hearing the voice clearly telling you go home?
So that that day I made unfinished business.
Wow.
The day where I was at the bridge was the day I went to the studio and I finished unfinished business.
No way.
No word of a lie.
So was that because in the story you said that like you were on the verge of
Yeah, I was literally on the verge, and what happened? I put my leg up, but my phone vibrated so heavily that I got scared. So I was thinking, what is going on? Without thinking, it was like a knee-jerk reaction. I've put my leg down, I've jumped back, I've answered my phone. It's my mom. So I was like, oh, hello. She's like, Im, where are you? I said, oh, I'm just like not far down the road. She says, something's unsettling me.
Wow.
I said, oh. And then she said, Imran, come home. I ran like a baby. Now, where God told me to go home, at that point, I was still, so at the point where I was at the bridge, I was still living in my house. I moved out after that. But when told me to go home, that was probably like a year later, a year and a half later. So that was the timing.
So you still hadn't like completely gone home?
Nah. I went home and I still left.
Wow.
I went home that day because I lived there, so God just told me go home through my mom. And I went home and my mom calmed me down, and then I went to the studio. But to get to the studio, I have to walk past the bridge. So on the way back, like walking past that bridge, I was crying my eyes out because I was like, for my mom to feel that, and I didn't tell her anything. Who snitched on me, basically?
Yeah.
And because I didn't tell nobody anything. I didn't make a dramatic scene.
Yeah.
I left studio and I went to the bridge just because of a lot of wahala that was happening. And on the way back to studios when I was like, wow, this is crazy. And I finished unfinished business that day.
And at that time, because you said you made the joke about, oh, like, who snitched, da, da, da.
Yeah.
So that makes me think, like, at that time, you still hadn't found that relationship with God was still not there.
Still not there.
It's crazy. I want to go back just a little bit more, right? Because I think there's so many people, you know, I feel like there's something clearly going on in the world right now where, like, so many people are bringing their lives to God and so many people are, like, asking questions, and there's just a lot going on. So I wonder, with you, when was that moment that you chose to kind of accept this thing that's kind of been like lingering over your life?
What actually happened was, at the time I was with my ex at the time, and I went to a church that she was going to, and there was a convention going on, and I think it was, who was singing? I think it was Emmanuel Smith. He was singing, and yeah. He's a serious worshipper, and obviously he said something that struck me. He was like, "I know," like he kind of stopped singing, stopped worshiping, and was like, "I know that, you know, everybody's got their own stuff going on."
Yeah.
But he had to take his shoes. I'm taking my shoes off, and him taking his shoes off was a sign of, I don't care who I am.
Yeah.
I don't care who's here. I came for one reason only, and that's to worship God.
I'm gonna worship.
At that point, I was sitting down. I'm like, "You right?" Because when I walked in, obviously upon me walking in, I'm seeing people look back like, oh, look, and I just felt so awkward. I was like, nah, I don't know how I feel about this. Straight away, I was like, this is the day I'm gonna make the decision to worship. I'm because you know that I have this awkward motion of like, do I put my hand up? Do I put my hand down? So I'm like, do I do this? And then I'm like, oh, but then that day, without no anything at all, I lifted my hands that day. And then I think it was probably like a month or two after that, a lady came down. It was Pastor Gabriel's mother. She came, and I was like, well, I was just sitting there minding my own business. Yeah. And literally, she said, "You come here." I said, "Me." Now, this isn't the first time that I've had like a prophecy, but she's called me out of my seat. So I'm like, what have I done? Thinking, what have I done now? So I get there, and she said to me that you're gonna be. What did she say? She said that you're gonna bring so much souls to God, and you don't even know it. She's like, all you have to do is believe. That was my only condition. I have to do is believe. And I was like, what? She says, do you write? At the time, obviously, I was writing for a lot of like singers and stuff like that. She asked me, do you write? I said, yeah. She said, I see you writing. She says, whatever you do, I see you on stages. And I was like, and then she said stadiums, and I was like, I just couldn't believe it because she's telling me my life and I don't know her. So then I was,
your first prophecy?
Nah, that was my third. So I've had two, and all of them are the same. So I was like, okay, maybe I'm being an idiot now by not listening. And that day I actually decided, I said, I caught on to what she was saying. She said, all I have to do is believe. But I have to like seek God to believe kind of thing, because I wasn't seeking God. Even though I was worshiping, I didn't really know technically who I was worshiping. See what I mean? I'm worshiping God because, you know, he's the higher being and the highest, and but I didn't get a deeper revelation of like who he is. So there was still this gap where I would feel unsure sometimes.
And how did you manage to close that gap?
I went in the Bible and I started reading. I asked God. I said, God, I know you're real without a shadow of a doubt, but show me more of who you are. And I started going through different scriptures, and I heard the Holy Spirit say, "Seek Jesus." So then I was like, okay, cool. Let me go and sift and find out who Jesus really is, kind of thing. And upon me seeking, and I caught the revelation of not only is God up there, but he came down in a man to die for all of us. It just made it more close proximity to know that you actually know what it's like. It's not like you're sitting up there and it's like you don't know me. You haven't you've experienced this yourself. So I was like, that made it so much more personal. And I was like, nah. this one here. So I just bit by bit, but I continue to seek Jesus, and the more I seek him, the more I catch more revelation of who he is. Yeah.
When you were speaking, it kind of brought me, a memory came to me, because I remember had a conversation like 2 years ago with one of my childhood best friends, and she received her prophecy. I remember we were like in church and we didn't really know much about God. Like we were literally like 16, 17, 18 years old, not knowing nothing. And you know, this huge man is saying, you're gonna buy this age, this, and this age, this. And I remember that being like a really big thing for her, because she like held on to that, right? And she kind of made her whole life about that prophecy. And I think sometimes like that's like the danger with prophecy when you receive it a little bit like too early. And you said you received yours like the first one like I don't know what age, what, 16 or something?
No, I received the first one when I was like 18.
18.
Yeah.
Did you have the same, because in our conversation, right, we broke down the fact that because she was so deep in like holding on to the prophecy, she wasn't allowing herself to like live, because every decision that she tried to make was to trying to mold herself into becoming that, like, you know, to bring that prophecy to life. And I think then that's like a, you know, dangerous way of living. And it's only been in the last like year or two that she's accepted that, okay, the prophecy is the prophecy, I just need to do my daily dues. Like I just need to do my daily dues. I want to ask you, like, just going back into even the first prophecy that you received, where did it take you in comparison to where the last one took you?
After receiving that first prophecy, that one was like it's the same thing. You call to nations, to lead a people, and and straight up, because I didn't believe it, because I'm like, the guy was telling me I'm a leader, and I'm like, leader? I'm like, do you know me? I follow everybody.
Wow.
So I'm like, yeah. So luckily, I just continued living it anyway. So after that, that's when Lotto Boyz kicked off. So I will just continue living, and I didn't see the prophecy unfold until probably late last year, where I started seeing like people come to Christ at the point of, because my pastor asked me to just say a word, any word that I could think of, and I did, and I'm seeing people come up to get saved and baptized, and I'm like, I was told this. This was part of one of the prophecies.
Wait, as in based on the word that you said, people were getting
Yeah,
baptized?
well, it's God's word at the end of the day, but I preached that day.
Oh, you preached. Okay,
Yeah,
that's not
so
really
this
count.
was last year around November times, and then the next day I went Leicester.
Wait, hold on. Wait, we have to go back just a little bit,
Yeah.
because like you say, you go from like a Lotto Ash, this guy, rapper,
Imagine.
you know, lifestyle outside, a man that I wasn't really the biggest fan of.
Yeah.
All of that going on to this man who's who's now preaching. I'm just wondering, like, just psychologically, how easy it is to kind of like accept that baton, like to kind of see yourself on a different kind of stage. Like, how easy or difficult was that for you to accept?
In terms of the transition, it was. I didn't accept it. What I did is I started deep in what God actually did for me.
Yeah.
It caused me to subconsciously change, because every time I was doing something that I knew that was outside of His will, I was like, nah, I don't even want to do that no more. It was just my desires started changing bit by bit. Like, for example, like I used to drink alcohol, like milk. And then there was one day where I just lost the desire for it. And so the transition, it's been easy. I'm not gonna lie, the transition has been easy. It's just, if I fight against it, that's when it gets hard. Because there's been times where I'm like, "Oh, I just don't know, man." Because it gets lonely. It gets somewhat depressing, because like you have to continue to sacrifice your wants and your desires. For example, if somebody flips on me now, the old me, I would throw them somewhere else. I would throw them over a table. I'll punch them. I'll fight. I'll do. Me, I know I'm like, but because of that, I'm like, I have to sacrifice that, put that down, and be an example regardless. Like
it's like bigger than you.
It's bigger than me, and I just constantly keep getting tested. And I get home, and I'm like, oh, and I'm not scared to cry. Me, I cried like a baby, because I'm like, this is hard. This is hard. I'm like, and no one told me that being anointed was wahala. But then when after upon my reading and I'm reading about David and all these people, I'm like, you guys, there was not one anointed person who had it easy.
So many things you said that I'm like, my face is like, no, because literally that thing you said about like you're constantly tested. When you get home and you realize you've just been tested and you've just failed. Yeah. And you're like, oh, I haven't grown as much as I thought I'd grown. I'm still a little lizard. Like here I am. How do you handle those moments, or do you feel like you kind of gotten to a point where now the likelihood of you failing, because if we're talking about failing, like it comes in failing the test or failing the various ways in which God is like testing, just how much you've grown, it wavers. It can be a big test, can be a small test. How do you feel like you're kind of at a point where like your ability to pass the test is stronger?
I think in my ability, no. What I do when a test like arises, I acknowledge that I'm weak, so that God could be strong for me. And in that, I then learn how to weaken myself, because obviously the Bible talks about in our weakness, His grace is sufficient for our weakness. And in that, His strength is made perfect. So therefore, it's not really about my strength. So I acknowledge, like, so for example, if somebody like shouts at me and I want to fight, I would say to God, I'm like, God, I want to fight, but because of you, I'm just not going to. And I'll just leave it and carry on, because I realize it's not about me. I can't do it. Me.
I will fight.
I will fight. I'm telling you. And I'll go to the end.
It's massive.
So yeah.
I want to talk about the loneliness that you were just talking about, because in my mind, again, just going back into that comparison of, the man that you're becoming versus like this Lotto Ash. And we're also going to talk about the name change as well, because I think that's quite a big statement, right? In my mind, I'm like, you're up against, and I had quite a similar conversation with B. Simone. I don't know if you saw that episode that came out like recently, where
I saw a clip.
yeah, she's been, she's also someone who's like very, very vocal about her journey with God and everything surrounding that. And one of the questions I asked her is like, you go into this, you're in this industry that is all about all that it's about, like especially for her, like you're in America, like it's a lot. How and have it, and being able to be like, yeah, this is who I am, this is who God's called me to be, I believe this, don't care. Was that an easy thing for you to also kind of accept? Because I don't know, and you can correct me if I'm wrong here, but like I wonder if there was like moments where you were like, oh, is this embarrassing, is this weird? Because I don't know, I think, and I kind of notice it more in like Christians, that it's harder, like, it seems that for Christians to be very bold in comparison to say like other religions, like I feel like Muslims carry their religion, carry their walk very easily. Yeah, do you know what I mean? So talk to me about how that's been for you.
Well, I think for me, I'm not gonna lie, it's been hard. It's been hard because, so I got baptized when I was 14. Yeah. Thinking that I knew what was gonna happen. After that, I didn't say a word. I didn't tell no one I was getting baptized. In fact, it was my cousin that snitched on me to like my school friends, saying, "Oh, he got baptized." So he's like, "Oh, you can't do that. You just got baptized." And obviously, because of that, I'm like, bro, like,
Wow.
now you've put this pressure on me. So I rebelled. I rebelled against everyone. I said, leave me alone, because you don't want me to just jump up and be perfect. And I never understood it. But if I read for myself, I would have realized that this has a lot more to do about grace than anything else. And it was never about us anyway. If it was about us, then Jesus wouldn't need to come to die for us. Do you get what I mean? So I navigated like being bold, because I knew who I was talking about. It's like, for example, if I know my mom. So if somebody says, "Oh, your mom did this," I'll say never. I said that's not my mom, and I'm able to say that because I know that I know that I know. I have too much evidence. I've been through way too much with God. I've gone in, come out the best way possible, not because of me, but because of Him. So when it came time for me to be bold about it, it was less about being bold. It was more about, I'm free enough.
Like, this is truth for me.
Yeah, this is the truth for me. The same way it's true for them. And I feel like the same way that other religions, because they grow up in it and they practice it, it's a lot easier. But unfortunately, I think in the Christendom, sometimes that we kind of like bottle like our religion sometimes. So yeah.
I love that. I want to talk about you going into gospel music, right? Not gonna lie, like one of my favorite songs. the freaking name is going out of my mind. It's not from your recent EP. Nice for Christ.
Yes, yes.
Nice for Christ. Oh my gosh, the a cappella version and the
The
normal
normal
version,
version.
like it is incredible because again I feel like because of the change in the world right now, there's a variety of sounds that's coming out of Christians and
Yeah.
just people of faith, and being able to represent and show that Christian sound doesn't need to like sound in one way. In terms of when did you get to the point, and I guess this also links to your name change, when did you get to the point of recognizing, okay, this is the path that God wants me to take, and this is how I'm approaching it?
I got to the point where I was seeking God so much that when I went to studio, I had nothing to say. Because all my songs usually are about girls, money, cars, just name it. But I went to studio and I had nothing to say. And I'm like, I don't want to be fake.
Yeah.
So I was like, let me just sing what I started making the beat. And I woke up, because obviously I had my studio in my bedroom at this time.
Mm-hmm.
And I jumped off. It was like 1 a.m. and I put down the melody. Dun, 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 dun. I said, And then I had this vocal that I've done ages ago. And all I was saying was, bye, bye. I wasn't saying Christ, but I was saying, bye. So I'm like, so I put it in and it was just bit by bit. And I kept hearing Christ over and over again. So then I just grabbed my mic and I freestyled a melody. And then from that freestyle, I ended up making a song. Now, I didn't make a conscious decision like, oh, I'm gonna do gospel now. I just said that this is a gospel song. I'm a Christian and this is a gospel song. And it makes sense. It's just that ever since then, I haven't been able to really do like the songs that I used to do. Because I don't want to be fake. I'm like, this is not who I am. This is not who I am.
It's funny. One of the most interesting video, and it was a clip I randomly saw actually, but it was when you were talking. It was an interview you had with someone, and you played the audio from Drake.
Yeah.
Because you had a, so for context, he had a song with Drake that you didn't end up bringing it out because I think at that point you had crossed over and you said you had already made your decision about like the path that the path you're taking.
Yes,
so talk to me because that's a big deal, any artist, like they've got a big song, and also we'll probably clip it into this video, but in the voice note that he sent, he was talking about, I've got a night campaign, and night campaign. Even me, I'm listening to that saying, like it really does show like where you're at and how firm you are in your belief. So even talk to me about that whole setup and how that came about, and you making that decision that I don't care who it is.
So what happened was, I was in studio. I got from studio, so I was in studio with J5. I was just putting down some melodies, and we made this song. In the song it goes 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 million for me. And I just left it up to J5, and I think so. What happened was Popcorn heard it. Popcorn loved it. Popcorn reached out. I was speaking to Popcorn, and then I think he showed Drake. So then Drake followed me, and then he messaged me after a while. And after him messaging me, I was like, "What?" I'm like, "This is Drake." Now I'm a Drake fan. I was like, "Whoa!" Drake just messaged me, but because of the time, I was consciously bit by bit making
another test.
The transition. Straight away I was like, as much as this is Drake, it wasn't by accident. So I started looking at what did God do for me in this section. Like he clearly strategically somehow, because I didn't do anything. For this to be so strategically planned, somebody did it. So when there's like 8 people involved and none of them actually planned it, I have to look at God, kind of thing. And what happened was, in my transition, because I'm not singing about the content of the song wasn't what I would sing today. So that song's not gonna come out. I think the video before made it look like I just said, I'm done with you guys. It wasn't that kind of thing. I don't think that's I don't think that's what, because the title of it was the title insinuated that I was like disbanding anyone.
Title of the interview.
The title of the short clip. Short clip.
Yeah.
And for me, obviously, I didn't want to give off the vibe of like, it's not like I'm disbanded from everyone. It's just I have myself moved, and thank God that Popcorn understood that. He still reached out and was like, anytime you got a song and stuff like that, I'm like, these are great people. These are actually great people, and I'll never shun them. I don't think it's about that kind of thing. I don't think that's what like Christianity is about. I think it's more about like knowing who we are so much that our influence somewhat changes people. It's not necessarily about like shoving scripture down their throat, but it's like, what does that person have? Why are they the way they are? And their principles and stuff. So what happens is they end up seeing Jesus in us, even if they haven't seeked him, kind of thing. So then we become the lights of the world, is what Jesus said to the disciples. So yeah.
Was that quite a, because you said you were, and I asked this purposely because I know there's like, probably someone who's watching this who's also in that space of deciding like, am I gonna do, go full all in? Da, 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 da. Was that quite a difficult decision for you to make? Because you said that you were like, there was 8 people involved or whatever, and none of it was to do with you, and you were looking up. So I'm like, oh, so when you say you're looking up at God, was it that, oh God, did you do this in order for me to go and make that music? Like, is this a sign? Because I don't know how sharp like your ears were to the words that God was like telling you. I can imagine it being a little bit of a, okay, is God telling me that I should go back into this industry, or is he like, what was the confirmation that it wasn't that route?
At that point I didn't make like Nice to Christ or anything like that. So I haven't made any gospel anything at this point. Because I was seeking God, it kind of made me just look at God rather than give glory to like Drake, if that makes sense. Rather than say, oh my gosh, Drake followed me, that's it. I kind of said, how in the world did, so I said, God, thank you. Because a lot of people will be like, but why would God put you in that thing? And I'm like, when you look at the trajectory of how God deals with people in the Bible, I get like kind of like skeptical at the God that a lot of even Christians talk about sometimes. Because I'm like, okay, for example, the story about Samson and Delilah, right?
Not probably, no.
So Samson and Delilah, basically, he got tempted, but there was a desire in him for Philistine women. So his parents were like, why do you keep going for Philistine women? Is there none amongst us that suit you or whatever? And the parents was like, like you can go for one of us, your own, but you want to go for a Philistine woman. At the time, Philistines were fighting against his own people.
Yeah.
And he just said, get that woman for me, for she pleases me well. And then the next verse says, but the mother and father did not know that this was God seeking an occasion against the Philistines. So I'm like, to us, it looks like a violation, but to God, it's strategic. So then I'm like, that's why you have to be very careful, and we have to have the spirit of discernment of spirits to understand what God is doing within a situation. Do you get what I mean? Because we'll end up getting like scared at like, oh my gosh, that can't be God because God would never send me there. But how do you know? And a lot of people are scared of how they're going to get judged, so they don't step into the realm where God is. A lot of people, when Moses was going to meet God, none of the people went in there with him, because it says when Moses stepped into the thick black darkness where God was, and that's sometimes where God is, and people don't understand that.
How long did it take you to understand that?
It took me after that. It was, to be honest, it was after that interview. After the interview came out, I went back and I was like, let me actually go into this, because I need hardcore evidence of like what was God doing then, and I kind of like sift it all out, and I had a conversation with God about it, and He revealed certain things to me, and I said, wow, and He just let me know I have to listen to Him, because my fear of, like, for example, my fear of being judged was one of the things that I know would end up stopping me from doing what God wants me to do. If God wanted to strategically place me over here, and I'm like, oh, but He wouldn't do that, because why would He do that? Because that's an area that He wouldn't. Why would He send me there? But I'm like, that's what God does.
I hope I don't sound like I'm like going over and over on things, but I just feel like it's like, because I think a lot of people battle with the understanding of like what is what, right? How did you get that knowing that? Let me try and break this down in a way that it makes sense in my brain. Just because I feel like I still don't get that complete understanding, right? Because on one hand, you can easily be like, oh, God sent Drake because this is where He wants me to go into. But then on the other hand, it could also be like, God sent this as a test to see whether or not I would follow through with what He is telling me to do. What was that? Was it a voice? Was it an inner knowing? Was it a like, you know what I mean? Like, what was it that allowed you to understand what you understood to make you say,
yeah, okay,
I'm gonna, do you get what I mean?
So what I look for anytime there's like a decision, and I'm about to do something, I would wait for peace. If I feel like God is convicting me about this, or I feel like I feel a bit stirred in a bad way, then I won't do it. It doesn't matter if it looks the best thing ever, and then I won't do it. By that time, I didn't send a song to Drake. I didn't do any of that stuff. It went and got done by itself. And I was just like, well, yeah, cool. And I prayed, and what I made sure I did, I said, God, if this is of you, then you can let it come out. But then when I look back from where I am now, I saw a lot of people DM'd me saying watching that video made them want to seek God more. And I said, if God done that just for that, then I'm all for
and
it.
that's enough.
Yeah.
I want to talk about circular music because I was actually having a conversation yesterday with my producer, and I was like, you know what, you'll probably be the perfect person to break this down with, right? Because I think it was actually just this morning I was talking to my partner, and we were having a debate where he was like, okay, but what do you actually consider circular music? Like, what? Because I don't know if there's ever been any sort of like clarification, because I'm like, I love Ira Star, I'm a Christian, and I love my faith, and you know, I walk in it and I'm definitely like growing every day in it, but I love Ira Star, I love Asha Care, there's so many artists who I resonate with and I love their music, and I don't listen to them and think, oh, this is circular because it's not gospel. Do you know what I mean? And sometimes I feel like people online like can make it seem as if like any music that's outside of like gospel is circular. Is there anything that you know
in terms of like
understanding that, an artist, because in my mind I'm like, God gives a lot of gifts to many people. You know, an artist is, you're gifted from God, and you're singing and you're doing your thing. Does that mean that artist, because they're not singing gospel music, they're not of God, or like their music is circular? Do you get what I mean?
I think that people like to kill what God is doing and then blame it on God. Because I always saw it as like, it's not necessarily about it being secular music. Each person has their own walk with God. Each person has their own duty to handle what God has given them, kind of thing.
Yeah.
I think the issue gets when we get touchy about stuff because it makes us look somewhat more Christian. But then that's where Jesus advised that we shouldn't judge, because the same measure that we judge is what we're going to get judged by. And I always I say it as well, because like my friend listens to secular music still, or like bashment or what. And I said to him, "Do you feel convicted when you listen to this?" He said, "No, not really." I said, "Continue until the Holy Spirit convicts you of it." 7 months later, he's like, "I haven't stopped listening to drill, by the way."
You?
No, him.
My
friend said this. He said, "I haven't started listening to like lo-fi drill, but I've started listening to like the hardcore dip him chicken and ching ching song."
Yeah.
And I'm like, no problem. But he said what allowed him to do that was because I didn't judge him. So what I always put out there is that stop judging people based on where they're at, or you will kill where they're going. Because I always say this, Jeremiah 29:11 says, "For I know the thoughts I think towards you, plans to prosper you, to give you an expected end," meaning that there's an end to this. If I didn't go through Lotto Boyz, my preaching would be dry. Now when I'm up there and I'm able to talk about real life stuff, letting them know I've gone through this and I've also come out the other side.
Yeah.
And I'm never gonna judge anybody else who goes through it. Because that was me. I'm going to give them the same grace that I was given. I'm not going to rob you just now that I have it. That's crazy. And people say, oh, no, but, you know, the gospel is sacred. But I'm like, then you're a dweeb because you don't know the meaning of sacred. Sacred means a genuine connection with God. And that is it. It wasn't meant to be like this, oh, it's sacred. That's not what it means. So then when I get why a lot of people come up to get baptized or saved whenever I'm preaching, is because I am preaching the gospel. Paul says if I preach any other gospel but this disband of me. And that's what Paul was preaching. This is grace. We can't rob people. We have it. It's been freely given, freely received, and we have to hand it back out. Because what if we are the only version of Jesus that people see? And I remember the first time I saw Jesus in a dream, and what happened was, in the dream I sinned. In the dream I sinned. Can I be open?
Yeah, please.
So in the dream, what happened was I masturbated in the dream.
Yeah.
At the time, I was struggling with like porn addictions. And I masturbated in the dream. And then I got up, I'm like, I can't do this no more. I said, Jesus, I need you because I just can't do this no more. And I went to the window and I saw Jesus facing this way, in the window. And I'm like, I said, I just dropped to my knees. And then he told me, stand up. So I'm like, now I want to see his face. So what I did, I walked this way because the wall was here, the window was here. I walked this way to try and see the front of his face. He turned to me, and as he turned to me, his face changed into mine. Bang, I woke up. And he says, Imran, if you want to see me, you have to be me. And I've never been the same ever since.
I can't lie. My hairs are very much standing.
Wow.
I can imagine that, and I said this to you on the phone. Actually, I didn't say this to you, but I remember one of the first things I asked you was when you said you preach. I was like, huh? Like I was like, you what? But as you're speaking now, I'm like, I can imagine what that experience looks like because you've had such a journey and it's been such a drastic, like, what is it? I don't want to butcher this phrase that I hear a lot, but like God doesn't call, like, he won't call the person who's like the cleanest, who's had the, do you know what? Do you know what
the statement is God doesn't call the qualified.
That's the English. That's the one. But and it's so true because it's only from someone like you who, you know, we know that you were in this culture, you were this, and now you've had this transformation. I want to know because this isn't something that you share online. Like I'm sure this is probably a lot of people's first time hearing that you preach, which is very a lot. Is that something that you're going to share? Is that part of your ministry to share that?
Yeah, I think with me, because of coming to Christ, I want to do things properly. So even though I do preach, well, I've my course is finished now. I just finished my assignment. I'm handing it in this week.
Wow.
So the ordination, the graduation is gonna be in August. So obviously it will be public then. But I just wanted to make sure I had my credential that I can carry. So I did the Bible school and I'm graduating next month. Yeah.
Wow. This is like a whole
Yeah.
whole different arena. And then you also said that you actually, in terms of like the two, music versus preaching, you actually feel more, was it that you feel more comfortable?
Yeah, I feel more myself preaching, which is for me that was crazy because, and I think I kind of clocked what it was because on Sunday I preached and I was praying in my room on the Saturday night and I saw like a group of people.
Yeah.
But in the group of people that was suffering, I was in there, and I said, God, wow. But then it kind of gave me like a realistic view of like how life is. Even though I suffer, I was still serve. So after going up to preach, was it not the same group of people who came up to get saved? And I didn't even know they weren't saved. And I said to myself, wow, there's like 8 people on the altar now. And I'm like, my church is small, but like there's 8 people here. And I'm like, it has nothing to do with me. And that's where I prefer it because I feel like my purpose is like hitting there.
Yeah.
With music, I don't know what's happening. I don't know who's getting touched or who's having an experience. But because I can see it there, it's like, wow. But I know that the more influential side will come from the music. And at some point, I hope that I can bring it together.
This is crazy. Yeah. This is really crazy. I want to talk about your EP because I listened and I really, really love it, and it's different.
Yeah,
it's also similar. It's very similar to, and I guess I should have expected this, but it's also very similar to Nights with Christ.
Yeah,
in a sense that it's just different. It's very you.
Yeah,
I think it's probably the way that I can describe it. Like it's very you. So talk to me about this EP. Talk to me about how you're feeling about releasing this.
I'm excited, man. I'm excited. With the EP, so I've called it Ash to Ashes because that's me disbanding of like whatever Ash did. That's me dying, so I can be revived. The EP is centered around my life now, so there will be a lot of stuff talking about like Christ, my walk with God, myself in terms of how I'm getting on, my marriage. I think I put my wedding song on there actually. So
yeah, you did.
And
congratulations, by the way.
Thank you. So yeah, I'm having an amazing time, and I wanted to share it with people. I finished the EP probably like a month ago, to be honest. But ever since then I've started the next one, so
Oh, you've already started working on
I'm
it.
rolling, and that one's got features on there. So yeah, I've got a few features to come out.
Is it with people that we would know?
Yeah, definitely.
Gospel artists also? Or
I think he does gospel now. Yeah.
who? Can you say? Or is this is the next EP?
Now
It's not on.
I can say
Yeah.
actually, because funny enough, his EP comes out the same day
Oh
as mine.
wow.
So it's UG.
Oh, I think I saw
But
this. I did actually.
that's
Yeah, I
one
saw
song. We
this.
got two songs.
Oh,
So
amazing.
one of them is gonna come on his EP, and
Yeah,
one of them will.
it's gonna come on your next
Yeah,
one. This is amazing, man. What a journey.
yeah.
I want to just ask you as like we round up things, like I said to you earlier, like there's definitely like a shift going on in the world. I think we would all be lying if we if we didn't say we felt, even me, like every day is definitely a battle with the flesh and acceptance of, you know, who God wants you to be. Because I think God has an identity for all of us. And I guess it's a matter of like, who is going to release themselves and surrender to God's will over their life. And I want to ask you, what's your thoughts, or what are your thoughts on like kind of the way the world is shifting right now, the things you're seeing take shape?
I think that it's just the well, the way I like to put it is that God is speaking and we're just seeing it.
Mm.
Because obviously the Bible says that God speaks once, twice, and man perceiveth it not, meaning that this is just him speaking. So I'm like kind of looking at what's going on, and I'm more hearing what he's saying. So these are it's the signs of the times. That's the best way I like to put it. But I think it's amazing seeing people come to God and surrender their life to him, and seeing the effects that it has on them mentally.
Yeah.
I'm seeing a lot of people come out of like depression. There's people that I know that have been like in the homes and stuff like that have come out, and they've seek God, and they've come out like fully different and changed. And I'm like, no normal man could have done that. And I'm like, I'm just in awe of what God is doing, and I'm excited to see what he does next.
I'm excited to see what's about to happen in your life. Like just even thinking down to, and I know these guys are gonna want me to round up, but I'm just thinking down to like, you know, the prophecies that you've had over your life. I think, you know, the third time that you heard it, and that one kind of, it sounds like that was like the biggest one, and the one that you kind of,
Yeah, that was the confirmation.
yeah,
because I said, God, one more time. I said, if you speak to me today, then I'll believe it.
and it was that day
And it
that
was
he
that
spoke to
day,
you. Wow.
literally.
Do you feel more equipped for all the things that you've been told about who you are and even what your name represents?
Yeah.
Do you feel equipped to carry this, I guess, to carry the mantle now?
Yeah, I think after my name switch, that was when I was like, okay, cool, I'm ready to carry it. That was me solidifying. I'm gonna carry what you've given me from birth. So obviously my name is Imran, and it means prosperity, um, exalted nation. And these are like names that you give to like Abraham and stuff like that. It's kind of got similar meaning. So I'm like, whatever this is, I have a lot to do. So, but I'm ready for it, man. I'm ready for it, definitely.
Yeah. This is amazing. Round of applause, everyone. That was so good.